You're watching Retirement Talk with Eric Kearney, Southwest Florida's retirement television. He's an author, a radio host, a fiduciary, and Southwest Florida's premier investment advisor. Here is Senior Investment Advisor Eric Kearney.
Like you just heard, this is Retirement Talk with Eric Kearney and Joseph Lanza of Retirement Wealth Advisors. I'm your host, Spike Spangle. Fellas, how you doing this week?
Hi, Spike.
Hey, Spike.
How you guys doing? Let's hop into this because today's retirement is completely different than it was 20, 30, or 40 years ago. And I'm afraid that people are still using a lot of the same advice, a lot of the same tools, expecting the same results as their parents and grandparents. And unfortunately, the tools have changed. Even though some of the names have remained the same, I don't know if we can rely on how those tools performed 20 or 30 years ago, or if we even want to. Let me start asking with you, Eric, bonds and CDs. Joseph, a couple of weeks ago, gave us some information about how interest rates rose, which brings our bond value market down. Disastrous year for interest rates going up. So how are bonds and CDs performing right now? I see these 4 and 5% in bond or in CD rates. Isn't that pretty good?
I think people, Spike, are looking for instant financial gratification. You know, they see 5% and they jump on it, but that makes them very reactionary. And you know, what happens is that when somebody's constantly shopping CD rates, that is not a good client for us. They don't want to do planning. They don't want to do income planning. They're not really forecasting for their future. The other problem is they're not factoring in inflation, and also, you know, these CDs, no matter what they pay, you're still taxed at an ordinary income rate. So people forget about that part. At the end of the year, you're receiving a 1099 and they're like, what the hell's this, right? And they forget about that part. So here's the problem with people that go into these CDs. They're like, the market's volatile, I'm going to go into cash. And then all of a sudden, oh, inflation's taking over, now I'm sitting in cash, right? And they're just never happy about where they are. What we have to do is we've got to build a pragmatic financial plan that's going to consider everything that's going on. Because again, for everything that you're in has risk. So whether it's cash, CDs, bonds, people think that's a safe side. But when you get whacked with taxes and inflation, you have to have some equities, some clean, non-toxic equities to pick up the slack in those.
Well, the inflation of what you're talking about is the purchasing power. And we've discussed this so many different times. People say, well, my money is at least safe. It's FDIC insured. I can't lose it. But you're also losing out on the purchasing power over time, the inflation over time. That 4 and 5% you might be getting in that bank CD.
Yeah,
inflation's that's where
wiping it
inflation
out,
is.
right? I mean, you're not actually gaining any purchasing power. And then you also have to think about opportunity costs as well, right? By missing out of the equity market, how much are you really missing on adding to your retirement accounts if you're just so focused on being safe and liquid? And you know, that's the risk with being safe and liquid, right? Because when we're taking capital risk or we're investing in the stock market, we're risking that asset may go up or down. And when we're investing in something like a CD, what we're putting up to the plate is liquidity, right? We're saying we're not going to touch this money for this period of time. Liquidity is also a risk as well. What if you need direct access to that money? So there's a lot of different risks that go into that decision-making process when we're choosing an investment.
And here's the thing, and we talk about nobody can time the market. You can look on the interwebs. There's study after study after study. Nobody can consistently time the market. But when people want safety in their money, because maybe they are going to spend it in that next 6 months, 12 months, their monthly bills, we understand you want it to be someplace safe, and maybe 4 or 5% isn't bad. But as far as the market timing, trying to either get those gains or avoid the ups and downs, can people time the market with this particular market that's going on, Eric?
No, not at all. I mean, volatility is here. It's been here for quite some time. I mean, we go back to way before 2008. People always reference 2008 because it was such a bad year. But really, when you take a look at other times, there have been significant multiple pullbacks and corrections in the market. And everybody really blames volatility to be a problem. But volatility is not that big of a problem. It creates a market. If you go back and you take a look in time, you go back to 1792, there were 24 brokers who put together the Buttonwood Agreement. The Buttonwood Agreement basically became the New York Stock Exchange. And at that point, what they did was they put together a market. You can buy and sell stocks. Now, what happens there is when there's buying and selling, that creates volatility. And a lot of people think that's a terrible thing. But now all of a sudden, instead of thinking it's a bad thing, why don't we embrace it and see how we can actually take advantage of it? Imagine buying Microsoft at $10, $20, $30, $50, and $100. It would get to a point where we could no longer afford to buy any more shares. And if we're 55 years old and we're trying to plan for retirement, now, don't we want to buy Microsoft at different prices so that we have the ability to get back in? That's volatility. That's when it's our friend. And so a lot of people don't like volatility. So the bottom line with volatility is you want to embrace it, not think against it. And volatility does not cause losses. It is your emotional reaction to the volatility that could possibly cause losses.
Huge point. The volatility itself doesn't cause the losses. Our buying and selling during volatility. And by the way, the point you're making, it's two sides of a coin. Downside volatility is what people don't like. The other side is upside volatility.
Right.
You don't hear the complaining when there's the upside of it. But you have to have both sides of that coin to achieve what you were just talking about, dollar cost averaging, getting the average. Now, what I also want to ask you, though, is that let's say, Joseph, somebody comes in and says, well, I don't need to be in the volatility anymore. I'm at retirement. I'm 65. I've got my Social Security. I want to take my money off the table. 3 or 4% looks okay. I mean, do you have to just agree with that and say, okay, we'll put that together?
Well, I mean, you can run it in the financial plan and see what that looks like. But I think a lot of people fail to understand that, let's say you're 65 years old, you could very well live to be 95 years old. That's another 30 years of a time horizon that you have to pull money out of this account for, right? So sometimes if you don't achieve that higher rate of return, well, then your money is going to either run out a lot quicker or you're not going to be able to spend as much every single year. So I think some people are in this mindset of, I'm in retirement now, I hate the market, I don't want to be invested in it at all. But it has its place, right? And not saying 100% invested in stocks, but you have an approach, you have a strategy where you have different sets of money set aside and they're achieving different things for you. And some of those may be achieving a higher rate of return in the market.
So when a couple comes into you, does it kind of start with a dollar amount saying, all right, if I know that they have at least $1 million, we're going to have a plan to work with. Or if they've got at least $5 million, is it the amount that they have or what they spend? Chicken or the egg, which comes first?
It's all about spending. It's all about your lifestyle, right? There's people that will come in that are, let's say they have $500,000 and they spend $40,000 a year, right, that they're getting from Social Security. In my eyes, that person is wealthy, right? They're living well within their means and they're happy about it. You could have somebody come in that has over $1 million in assets and they spend $150,000 a year. How rich really is that person, right? It's about the time frame for it. It's about what your financial habits are as well. And the dollar amounts don't really mean much. It's more about your habits and your spending that really are going to formulate that plan.
We talk about the portfolio recovery on your program. Maybe folks are thinking out there, though, I don't really need to recover. I'm doing okay. I didn't take a lot of losses. Can you explain the portfolio recovery? Is this a review? Is it only about the investments? What does it cover?
Basically, what it comes down to is there's a lot of people that are not happy with their rates of return over the past 3 and 5 years. 5 years ago, we actually sent out a video to our clients. We said, look, there's 2 trains that are going to be coming together. Now that interest rates are so low, at some point they are going to go up. And that will absolutely wreak havoc in the fixed income world, which it absolutely has done. If you take a look at Vanguard's bond index, you can look up ticker symbol BND or BNDX. Just go onto Yahoo Finance. Take a look at the 3 and the 5 year rate of return in those. Please help me understand how they would be beneficial in anyone's portfolio. When you factor in taxes, inflation, healthcare that's soaring right now, we're seeing a lot of asset classes that are significantly underperforming and not doing any service for you. So with people that are so concerned with retirement out there, Spike, we want them to do a portfolio recovery strategy and see how we can actually improve that. And again, we talk about things that are 25 years old. We see portfolios that are 20 and 30 years old, and you're going back into the 90s. Yeah. And so, again, people are paying these fees. They have mutual funds. They're not being managed or monitored. We want to actually update that, rip that portfolio down to the studs, and give you what you deserve.
Man, I love that. Let's rip that portfolio down to the studs. Let's see how this thing is built and make sure that you've got a structure, a lattice that is going to work for you in retirement. Maybe it needs to be completely rebuilt, but I'll tell you what. To find out if your portfolio is going to work for you, there's no cost to it. We're not going to charge you to come into the office. We're not going to charge you to do the review. This is complimentary. This is what we do for the television viewers, for the radio show listeners. We want to make sure that you've got the portfolio you need. If you decide you need help, we can decide to work together and see what that looks like. But to find out about your portfolio recovery, you've got to call the phone number you see right here. We've got a message about the firm following this, but take down the phone number or use that QR code. Open up your phone to the camera function, point it at the black and white box right there, and click on it. You can schedule your own appointment. More with Eric Kearney and Joseph Lanza right after this.
What does your retirement look like? Is it filled with travel, spending time with family, uninterrupted rounds at the golf course? Or are you too worried to even think about your hopes and dreams? Eric and his team can answer your questions with a complimentary review of your retirement and income plan, and it all starts with getting to know you. They'll do exactly that by going over your current strategy to expose the weaknesses that may exist in your retirement portfolio. Plus, they'll explain potential risks and possible strategies to you in easy-to-understand terms and help get you reacquainted with your portfolio and income strategy. Once they understand your retirement goals, objectives, and dreams, they'll work to custom build a retirement plan to help ensure that you cannot outlive your income in retirement. Because every dream needs a plan. Call Eric today and schedule your visit. You only retire once, so let's get it right the first time.
Welcome back to Retirement Talk with Eric Kearney and Joseph Lanza. I'm your host, Spike Spangle, and we're talking about the difference in retirement today. It is certainly not the retirement of our grandparents or even our parents. 20, 30 years is a big time, especially today. The technology has changed so much. The markets are changing so much. We've talked about AI and how it's changed in portfolios. But one of the biggest sticking points to me that you keep bringing up is the costs of health care.
Right.
And so many folks out there, I think a lot of our viewers as well, think that Medicare, it's like, hey, once we get to that finish line, 65, we can start signing up for Medicare, even though there's costs for all the different parts, the A, B, C's, and D's. Does Medicare cover everything you need in retirement?
Right, and that's one thing that we have to take a look at. And, you know, it's interesting how we talk about AI and how things are changing. And when we have change speeds up very, very quickly. When we talk about Medicare, it's kind of like it's 30 years ago. Nothing much has changed with that, although it's getting more expensive for people. And it doesn't cover a lot of things, and that's where people become disappointed. People get so excited. Hey, I'm almost 65. I'm going on Medicare. I'm like, it's not that exciting. You know, don't waste your life away. But when we take a look at it, you have to understand that dental, foot care,
vision,
eye care, vision's a huge one. Hearing aids, massage therapy, Botox, cosmetic surgery. I mean, people are disappointed when, you know, that's not covered. But massage therapy is actually a big one. There's a lot of people who can really benefit from stronger massage therapy with getting the blood flow going and so forth. So a lot of these things are not covered. And we always talk about healthcare costs the average retiree about $315,000 for a couple. And that's what they're paying for. So they want to be comfortable in retirement. And with all those things that are not covered by Medicare, we've got to factor those in.
One of the things I think you can do beforehand, hopefully you can shed some light, those health savings accounts, I've heard there's almost like a triple tax benefactor from it, that you can put money in without having to pay taxes on it. It can grow tax-free, and then when you take it out for proper medical costs, no taxes as well. But you got to do that ahead of time. You've got to do that while you're employed, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I have one right now. I actually just bought a water pick from it. I mean, the water pick was $120.
Don't get it shut down on us, okay? No, but is it over-the-counter stuff like that?
It was over the counter, and I bought it and I put it on, and they're like, okay, yeah, that is. I mean, I saved the receipt and everything, but you know, I got to take care of my teeth, so yeah.
Well, we do. That's one thing. We don't get more of these later in life.
That's true.
Those are some of the many costs. But I understand, though, that you can't only put into a health savings account while you're working. So to be able to use this, but I mean, you can pump in hundreds of thousands of dollars into a health savings account. But don't you? I think you have to have a high deductible health plan while you're working.
Correct, yeah. And the good thing is that the money actually rolls over every single year. So if you don't use it for a medical expense that year, it actually can build on top of itself and just keep going. And then once you retire, you can actually switch that from an HSA to an IRA and do a rollover right over to that account. So it doesn't go to waste.
I just read an article recently, and we've all been doing it on radio this week, that the baby boomer generation has actually, for the first time, been taken over by millennials. Gen Xers, millennials, so there's about 140 million. Boomers have been the largest generation here in the United States, which means that we've talked about this before, a bigger strain on health care, a bigger strain on Social Security. But since they're spending more and they're having to take more out of their retirement accounts, is this a good thing? Is this the cycle of money life? Is they have to start spending RMDs, start pulling money out? I know there's the strain on the Social Security and the health care, but what about as they're taking money out of the retirement account and spending it into the economy? Is this a good thing? Is the baby boomer generation is starting to actually dwindle a little bit?
It's good for the government. Right?
Getting that money out.
You know, and that's the one thing is that, you know, required minimum distributions, they keep raising the age, right? So eventually it probably will be 75. The other downside of that is it gives your IRAs more time to grow, and they're actually taxed at a higher rate. So eventually the government knows exactly what they're doing. Please understand, no matter which side of the aisle that you're on, the Secure Act was a bipartisan agreement. Secure Act 2.0, another bipartisan agreement. This is one of the biggest tax grabs in history because they're going after that $70 trillion in retirement assets from the baby boomer generation. When you wonder how they're going to actually pay for Social Security, that's actually how they're going to do it.
Right. So as the baby boomers are starting to spend out of that, we're trying to figure out, as today's retirement is totally different, are they funded properly? You've talked before about making sure that we have a plan, how we adjust that plan. Does today's baby boomer, if they've got a plan from even 5 years ago, is that still valid today?
No, a plan, it has to be changing on an ongoing basis, right? It's almost like Eric and I will joke and say, as soon as that plan is written out by tomorrow, it's probably going to be different. You probably need to update that plan. And that's the truth. But when we look at the baby boomer generation in specific, they are spending a lot more money than that generation before them, that silent generation. And we think they value experiences a lot more. They're not as afraid to go into debt as that silent generation was. And so baby boomers, they're spending on average, I think, up to $20,000 a year more. And Eric and I have actually sat down in meetings with people, some baby boomers, and they've said, my goal in retirement is to die penniless, right? There's not much room for error when you're really trying to achieve that.
You're like, okay, great, and I can come up with a plan for that. Just tell me exactly what month you're going to pass away.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, there's not much room for error, but I think what it's actually doing is it's sparking a lot of baby boomers to take the steps to make sure that they can maximize their income without running out of money in retirement. So they are getting more financial plans done.
Right, and another thing is we're not just going to be sitting in a rocking chair. We need to start taking care of ourselves. And you said some of those things like massages, or even joining sports clubs, or volunteering. Some of this, it takes time, energy, and so forth. It's not always just about the money, Eric, from what I understand from you. We've got to take care of ourselves in retirement. Yeah,
absolutely. And this is really interesting because with this baby boomer generation, it is significantly different than my parents' retirement. So you have the go-go years, and then you have the slow-go years, and then you get into the no-go years. The interesting thing about this and the baby boomers right now is they're extending the go-go years. They're significantly extending the slow-go years, and then they want to have very little no-go years, which is expensive. They want to travel more. They want to see things. They're extending their international travel and then going down to domestic travel and then doing weekends. But it's costing money, and I think it's great, but we want to be able to be prepared for that. The other thing that's changing with the baby boomers is health is becoming a status symbol. No longer is the fancy house, no longer is the nice car, it's actually your health. And there's a lot of people that are putting a lot of effort into their health by hiring a financial advisor to be able to pay for a personal trainer. And then also diet and nutritionists, they're actually becoming a part of their life as well. So
that's a whole different field. A retirement nutritionist, as opposed to your weightlifting years and your working out years. It's about your longevity lifestyle and being able to maintain that with your nutrition. And these things all have costs.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we're seeing is, you know, we have a doctor that's become a very good friend of ours. And if you are more mobile when you get up to 65, the easier your retirement is going to be. You know, so people are working on Pilates, doing yoga and things, and trying to be more mobile. And I think that that's a huge advantage for a lot of retirees.
Right. We've got to take a very short message break right now. We want to make sure that you can design the retirement that you've always wanted. You could be in retirement for 30, 32, 35 years. So do you have the funds that are going to last? let us help you do a portfolio recovery review. There's absolutely no cost to it. All you have to do, call the phone number you see down here on the bottom of the screen, or you can use that QR code as well. Open up your phone to the camera function and point at that black and white box. Click on it. It'll take you over to a landing page. You can schedule your own appointment. More with Eric Kearney and Joseph Lanza right after this.
Retirement Wealth Advisors with Eric Kearney.
Are you overwhelmed by recessions, elections, and corrections? Believe me, I get it. And on top of that, who's more frustrated with the financial industry, me or you? If you're in a financial no man's land, give us a call today. Let's get that conversation started.
Retirement Wealth Advisors.
Welcome back to Retirement Talk with Eric Kearney, Joseph Lanza. I'm your host, Spike Spangle, and today we're talking about the retirement evolution. It is very different than it used to be. This is not sitting on the porch in a rocking chair with your glass of lemonade, right. Especially with the humidity here in Florida. But we also need to make sure that we design it properly, that we have the right financial instruments. But you talk a lot about mindset. You talk about going into retirement, negativity starts to creep in. I think this has to do with our social network. And the big thing for me is that social network is not what's in your phone.
Right.
It's not what's in your computer. It's still having human connection. Talk to me about the negativity. You try to help people avoid that in retirement.
Yeah, so the negativity is something that we're constantly working on, and it's a lot of work. You want to be open to mindfulness, being aware of your life at the time instead of just, look at how fast time flies by sometimes. It's Monday morning, we're waking up, and before you know it, it's Friday. Where did the entire week go? But one thing that's leading to that is all of the media and all of the news that's out there. And the one thing I want to talk about, Spike, is our overthinking. We overthink things. And our brains allow us to analyze, process, think about things way out into the future. And it's really what separates us in mankind. It's that characteristic that we have that other animals do not. The problem is that when we start to overthink, we undermine its power and we start to think differently.
But the overthinking of retirement is probably a lot of the same bottom line question. Either, am I going to be okay, or am I going to run out of money?
Yeah,
Joseph,
and I want to talk about that too, because it's interesting that you bring up the bottom line. People will come into me, Eric, what's the bottom line, right? There is no bottom line. I promise you, after 23 years in the financial industry, there is no bottom line. Everyone's financial goalposts are constantly moving. Your goals, objectives, your income needs are constantly moving. Then you have a market that has volatility. It's all over the place. You've got recessions, you've got elections, you've got corrections. There's all different kinds of things that are constantly moving. And what our firm is actually doing is we're always moving the goalposts for you. So when somebody says, well, what's the bottom line, Eric? I don't know. It's going to change all the time. And that's what we're here for. And I wish that there was a bottom line in this industry, but there is not.
Yeah. Joseph, when you're looking at longevity today, you're going to be in the industry for a long, long time as well. How do you start judging how long you want to take out the money that's going to be in their portfolios for the lifestyle that Eric is talking about? Do you look at the parents? Do you think we're going to be living about the same age as parents? Or do we have to extend it a lot further than that today?
I mean, obviously longevity and family history is a thing that we do have to factor in. But at the end of the day, too, we're always being more safe than sorry, right? Just because somebody's parents may have passed away earlier doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to pass away at the same age. Because the last thing that we want to do is really plan for somebody to live just to that age. And then, of course, they live longer than that. Now we have no more money left over, or we have different goals that we're not achieving. So we're always pushing that end goal age very far out there because we're always going to be more safe than sorry. And then I've actually had somebody come in and I showed them the plan, and we run normally about to 94 years old. And he sat back and he just laughed at me and he goes, "Dad, just run this to 88." And I'm like, I can't run it to, what if, and it won't, trust me. And I'm like, well, you don't know that. So, people get in that mindset of, I'm not living past that age, or I'm not living to that age, but we have to know.
But you don't know anymore.
Really, exactly.
We are living long.
Yeah, and we have to know as the person's advisor that they're going to have enough money to keep them going for that long, God forbid. Right?
Yeah. So 94, 95, is that kind of what you do with the firm, or did you go by their health?
Well, I think you can also take a look at a female. You know, we do have females that are living into their hundreds now too. And you know what? Again, you don't want to get to be 96 and be like, hey, you have no more money. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the worst time to be. The bottom line is that the older that we get, understand that the more financially vulnerable that we actually feel. So we understand that not only do we not want to go back to work, but maybe we can't go back to work. So you are getting to a point in your life where you have defined who you are financially, and that's what we have to work with. Now all of a sudden we have to take that and making sure that we're going to make that last for a number of years.
Eric, on your website is a quote that there is more to retirement than your finances. For a lot of people who are coming into a financial advisor, they might only be thinking about the finances at first.
Right.
Why is it so much broader for you? It's not just about the dollars and cents?
It's really about your life and your lifestyle. You know, what's become important to you. You know, I have a work family, I have an outside family, I have friends, I have all these guys that work for me hard every single day. You know, I have people in my life that I'm so connected to that they don't even understand that. But, you know, it's the finances that afford that, you know, and I do want to take care of people, right? The people that are important to me in my life. So through financial planning, I'm able to do that. Spending time with my family, my friends is so important to me, but we have to be able to get there. And so there's a lot of people that say, look, my money's important, but my family's even more important, right? So we're trying to give everyone that lifestyle that they're actually looking for in order to be able to live the life that they actually have become accustomed to.
Joseph, do you enjoy that when people are coming in for what you guys call their annual review and you see them living the lifestyle that you put down on paper and said, this is what it could look like?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, especially when you build out that ongoing relationship with that client, right? And I think that's where we're a little bit different than a lot of firms or people even think about financial advising of, oh, you set up a client and you set them up and they're good to go. No, it's an ongoing process of meeting with that client and constantly making changes for them. But when they come back in and you can actually see somebody enjoying retirement, especially when you knew them during their working years, you knew how hard they were putting into work, and now they're finally enjoying that, it's such a rewarding feeling for us, even just to see that.
Eric, we've got to wrap up. Why don't you talk about putting together the lifestyle blueprint of somebody's dreams?
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey, everybody out there, thank you so much for listening, watching, and for all the positive feedback that we get from the show every single week. If you're out there, you feel like you're in a financial no man's land, you're not really happy where you are, and you want a second opinion, pick up the phone, give us a call. You'll be talking to one of our staff members. Come in and let's just have that initial meeting. Let's see if we can put you in a better financial position. Again, thanks for watching.
Thank you guys so very much. You can get your own personal financial blueprint right here. You can call the phone number down on the bottom of the screen. You can use that QR code by opening up your smartphone, putting it right over the camera function in that black and white box underneath my arm there. Click on it. You can schedule your own appointment on the landing page. Your retirement is going to be completely different than your parents or grandparents. Plan for it today. Thank you so much for watching Retirement Talk. We'll be back next week.
Hey, Southwest Florida, thank you so much for watching today's show. If anything's resonated with you today, or you're really looking for that second opinion, give us a call today. If you're serious about your finances, we're serious about working with you.
Remember, you only retire once, so let's get it right the first time. Have a great week and an even better retirement.